Okay, folks, here's a quick review of the Jungle Disguise Dutch figure that was produced by NECA as part of their Predator line of products. I got this through the Toys R Us website for just under $24, including shipping. And this is part of the 9th series of Predator figures, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the first Predator film's release. Okay, so when I first got this figure out of its packaging, I was very impressed with it. I feel that this is an absolutely wonderful portrayal of Dutch from his final combat with the Predator. I was also pleased to see that he has a trickle of blood coming from his mouth, like he appeared when he was hiding from the Predator underneath that bridge. Okay, paint apps on the figure were done very nicely. NECA, I'll be honest with you, they did an absolutely wonderful job in capturing the look of the mud, the dust, and the dirt all over this figure's body. And it even feels like there's dirt on this figure when I hold it in my hands. And that was a nice touch on NECA's part to do. The articulation joints on this figure were, for the most part, very tight, and thus they were very hard to move. Dutch has articulation in the neck, the shoulders, the mid-torso, the waist, the knees, and the ankles. The figure's joints are starting to loosen up, but only slightly with repeated movements. So let me pause here, zoom in, and I'll give you a closer look as to what Jungle Disguise Dutch looks like. Okay. Alright, Jungle Disguise Dutch comes with some accessories, so let me pan down real quick and I'll show you what they are. The figure stands that you see him standing on were not included in the package and were purchased by me separately. Okay, first up, he came with this torch, and I'm sure everybody remembers that scene where he was holding this torch high over his head, screaming for the Predator's attention to begin their final combat in the movie. And as you can see, this has some really nice detailing on it, and this flame has just the right amount of translucency in it to give it an even more realistic, movie-accurate appearance. Next up, he came with a bow, a spear, and these 3 arrows. All of these accessories have excellent detailing on them. However, the string on the bow feels a bit on the fragile side, so be careful not to accidentally break it. The spear has the combat knife mounted on it that we've seen with the other Dutch figures, but the blade now has an even more distressed look on it, which, after checking the Predator Blu-ray that I have, is movie accurate. And I have seen other YouTube reviews of this figure holding the bow, but unfortunately I couldn't quite get the bow to fit in either of my figure's hands, so I'm just going to display this figure with the bow slung over his back. And I'm going to come in closer and give you a look at each of these accessories so that you can see the level of detail on them. And they are just all very, very nicely done. And one thing that I noticed about this bow, it has a small loop right here, and you can mount these 3 arrows inside that loop, just like Dutch had it in the Predator film. Okay, and finally, he came with these exploding grenade weapons. And once again, you can see that the level of detail on these is just very, very nicely done. It's an excellent job on NECA's part. All right, back to the figure itself. It should also be noted on this figure that Dutch is wearing what I believe is a flashbang, and that was right there. And you remember he used that also in the final combat with the Predator. But anyway, what I'll do now is a quick 360 of Jungle Disguise Dutch for you and let you see what he looks like from all sides. So here he is from the front. From the left-hand side. Here he is from the rear. And once again, you can just see the level of detail that went into this figure. It is just exceptionally done. All right, here he is from the right-hand side. Finally, here he is once again from the front. And the flashbang accessory, I wasn't able to remove it off of this figure, but I'm sure you could if you really wanted to, with some effort. So overall, I think that this figure, it really is a nice piece of work. It's just an absolutely excellent portrayal of Arnold Schwarzenegger as he appeared in the final portion of Predator. And NECA saw fit to add some really nice bonuses to this figure, like the realistic appearance of all the weapons that Dutch used in his final confrontation with the Predator. Excuse me. But anyway, the only minor problem that I ran into with this figure was not being able to get him to hold his bow. And I have to admit, I was a little disappointed with that, as I really would have liked to have gotten Dutch in an action pose, getting ready to shoot an arrow or maybe one of those exploding grenades. But as I said, I know that the bow can be placed into the figure's hands, and maybe there's a defect with my bow. It's hard to say. But in spite of that shortcoming, I'm going to give this figure one of the highest recommendations that I've ever given any figure. If you see this figure in your local Toys R Us or your comic book shop, this is definitely one to add to your Predator collection. So if you see it, pick it up without hesitation. And you definitely don't want to miss out on having this one in your collection. Okay, so on that note, take care and stay tuned for my next review. Have a good one.